Adam, what can you tell us about that last pick?
He had just about as inconsistent of a season as a wide receiver could have, exploding for some huge numbers some games, only to follow them up in other games where he struggled to make a catch. Sources tell me there are major concerns with his hands, pointing to several key drops throughout his career. He'll be challenged by his new coaching staff to eliminate the drops and will need to find the consistency that once had him the talk of this year's wide receiver class if he hopes to last in the NFL.
The Lions are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Buccaneers have made their selection. What can we tell you about him? That's why we have Adam Schefter.
He's a ferocious defender whose speed makes him a nightmare for offenses when he blitzes. After setting the team record for sacks in a game, he soared up draft boards. Scouts I spoke with raved about his football IQ, feeling he could captain a defense in a matter of years. Sources tell me that aside from his fierce reputation to get to the quarterback, his true value is that he can impact a game mentally as well as physically. Opposing offensive coordinators will need to give great thought to assigning a back or tight end to stay at home and block him during pass plays. This eliminates an offensive weapon and shifts the balance of power to the defense. Not many linebackers in this league garner that type of attention, making him a special talent.
The Titans pick is in. Let's go to Adam with more on Graham.
He entered the season drawing comparisons concern over his lack of production. There were some GMs who felt his poor stat lines were a direct result of the increased focus he began receiving as a result of his hot start. One pointed specifically to reports of offensive coordinators fashioning entire game plans around avoiding him, knowing that his fellow linemen were incapable of picking up his mantle. He'll now have a chance to prove believers right, as he's expected to see significant playing time in the preseason with a line far superior to the one he had in college.
Vikings just made their pick. Adam, what can you tell us about him?
A common complaint scouts like Matt Miller had was his dependence on raw power rather than proper technique. He tested well physically at his pro day, moving fast and displaying some strength. But in swim and rip drills, his hands looked slow and he relied more on his weight to move through the drill. If his technique doesn't, he may find himself getting locked up by linemen and unable to break free.
The Broncos are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock. The Redskins are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock. Let's go to Adam now, who's got more on the Steelers' last pick.
Well, there isn't much to say other than this kid was born to run. He's the spitting image of his father, a nationally ranked sprinter in several major events, and highly recruited by every major college. However, unlike his dad, he chose to pursue a career in football, and so far that decision is paying off. He may not be gold medal fast, but he has the speed and quickness to cause fits for the opposing team. He's the type of player you like to see out in the open field where he can make moves a lot of other players can't. The coaches are going to love having his speed at their disposal.
Our very own Adam Schefter has more to say about this pick.
He's a raw athlete with a lot of upside, and the question will be, where and when does he hit his ceiling? He's still relatively new to football, as he was a track and field runner for the school his first 3 years of eligibility. He definitely has the body to play any of the skill positions in football, and he may ultimately end up playing a different position than what he's drafted as. I'm sure the coaches will love the athleticism he brings, but first they'll probably try him out at a few different areas before finding his best role.
Lewis is gone, Adam. What do you say?
If anyone should get a trophy for how to train in preparation for the draft, it has to be this kid. A lot of second-year guys will bulk up in the offseason to better protect their bodies from the intense physical demands of the NFL. It was smart of him and the trainers to get a head start on the rest of the class in that area. And from what I've been told, he hasn't lost a step. Now, when you look at him, you see a player that can contribute in week one. He's more conditioned than most of his fellow classmates, and that's going to help him hit the ground running once the season kicks off.
Now that the Ravens have made their pick, let's go to Adam Schefter to hear more about him.
He was having a relatively quiet season this year, but we all know how one big showing can quickly turn things around. His late-game heroics and Hail Mary went down as one of the greatest moments of the entire season. Since then, he's continued to show a knack for stepping up his level of play in clutch situations and was able to pull off a string of impressive victories, each time increasing his draft stock. Some say you can only capture lightning in a bottle once, but I believe he can do it again. And apparently, his team does too.
The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. Adam, what can you tell us about the Titans' newest player?
It's no surprise seeing him get drafted at this point, considering he was one of the hottest running backs in college this year. When's the last time he rushed for less than 100 yards in a game? If you check, it was actually 2 seasons ago, and that was due to a minor injury. The guy's a threat to take it to the house every time he touches the ball. And if he gets by that first tackle, watch out because it's daylight from there on. As long as he can quickly adjust to the speed of the NFL, he has the potential to be a great back for this team.
Well, if you're wondering what the delay is, I think we've got a trade coming here.
The Vikings are now on the clock.
The Raiders are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock.
Okay, now that Romo's off the board, Adam, give us all the dirt.
After a string of injuries his junior year and what looked like more of the same his senior year, he made the decision to leave the team. It was a difficult choice to make, but after consulting with the trainers and coaches, it seemed like the best long-term option. His body needed more time to heal from past injuries, and opting out of his senior year helped him make a complete recovery in preparation for the draft. So even though there wasn't a lot of recent tape on him, he did put on a good show at the Combine, convincing scouts he hadn't lost a step. Some teams were concerned with his competitiveness after foregoing that final year of eligibility, but at least one team was confident enough to pick him up. Now we'll see if this team can keep him healthy and on the field.
The Colts are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Steelers are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock.
All right, team is now off the clock. Adam Schefter, can you tell us about their newest player?
Typically, when a player has a bad day at the Combine, he uses his pro day to redeem himself. Unfortunately for this running back, all he was able to do was confirm what he did back at Indy. He's not the fastest, and he's definitely not the strongest, but what hurt his stock the most was his inability to show improvement between the Combine and his pro day. His success in college might be the only reason he went this high. Let's see if he can carry that success over to the NFL.
The Giants are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Ravens are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. All right, now that the pick's in, let's go to Adam. Adam, what can you tell us about this guy?
He was a tight end who really needed a good offseason to help his stock, but it just never happened for him. It was clear through all-star practices and game day that he has issues moving his feet when blocking at the line. He played more of the H-back receiver role in school, so that may be one reason why he struggled on the line. However, he didn't do much as a receiver either, failing to get separation from the linebackers. He's going to need a lot of coaching on his technique, and it looks like this team is prepared to give it to him.
The Patriots are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Browns are now. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock.
Adam, what can you tell us about the Raiders' newest player?
In what could be seen as a controversial pick, here's a player who has been followed by quite the reputation as a wild child during his years in college. Numerous social media outlets followed and shared his off-field collegiate exploits, submarining his draft stock. Even with his party boy perception, many of my sources told me that this was simply a case of boys will be boys and not the foreshadowing of a larger issue. Look for this coaching staff to keep him extremely busy, hoping to avoid any unwanted publicity. This task may be easier said than done, especially given all the potential off-field distractions that come with being in the NFL. He has the potential to be his own worst enemy, and should he be unable to focus on the opportunity ahead of him, this pick could end up being one of the biggest busts of the draft.
The Falcons are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Bills